All right. Hey, I know Angular now. All right, well, close, right? I've not necessarily been an Angular pro, and I'm probably still not pro. I know I'm not, but I know enough Angular now to build something and do some pretty cool stuff. So I kind of wanted to share with you how you can use the ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript and specifically the map components inside of Angular to build a pretty cool app. Okay, so DevTech Summit 2025 is coming up right around the corner for me, and I need to prepare. And one of the things I'm going to be showing is going to be an Angular demo. So I kind of want to highlight that here. Okay, so here I have an Angular application I wrote. And it's an application I like to reuse a lot because it kind of involves a lot of moving pieces. And it's basically the main page is going to give me a list of different types of power plants. And then when I click on one of these power plants, it's going to go ahead and display a map that's going to filter down those type of plants. And it's even got a legend in here. So you can look at the legend, and this is gas. And what's also cool up here is I have a URL parameter to filter out gas types. And I picked that up inside of my application here. And again, I can just go down here, click on any one of these, and it's going to go ahead and give me the pop-up information like that. I even have a home button, so I can go back home and go pick nuclear. And you'll notice I've got that little calcite loader in here. And this is all calcite, by the way. Before in the past, when I've done this app, I haven't always used calcite, especially on the main page, just because I didn't feel like I needed it. But I decided to go with calcite all the way for everything here. So I think it kind of demonstrates kind of a bit, right? There's a service behind this that's going to query data with no map up front. And then I'm going to click on one of these things. I'm going to go ahead and load a map and then grab a feature layer and provide a definition expression that's going to go ahead and filter out the features on the map for me. And I even do a little bit of logic in here to display the home button if I'm not on the home page. Right, so let's look at what something like that's going to look like. One of the things I had to do in here is work with the CSS, right? So in the styles of the angular.json, which I learned was something that you have to work with, I've got the CSS that's going to be pointing to ArcGIS core, and there's also a little bit of CSS for the map components. Now, for reference, I am using the Angular sample for map components that is in the Esri JS API resources repo on GitHub. So I started there. So most of the stuff is already set up for me. Added these two lines here that copy the CSS over for me. And let's go into the app itself, right? Now, for this app, I'm using a service, right? And Angular is pretty cool. It's got like command lines that you can use to just create a service or create a component, and it'll kind of give you the plain service and everything, and any support files you might need as well. I did have to kind of change the structure of where some of the components came in. Maybe there's a setting for that in the Angular.json to tell it what you want the folder structures to look like. If you want a components folder, do you want a different kind of folder structure, whatever it is. I don't know, but I just made my own to bring it all in. Right, so here's the URL for the layer that I'm using. And I have a simple little type here, a data type. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my service, and I have a filter subject, right? So this is going to be using RxJS. So it's a nice little subject here that I can subscribe to and observe. I create my filter in here, and I have a function here called setFilter. And that's going to go ahead and update the filter based on what I give it, right? And this is going to get injected into my application so I can use it wherever I want to use it. And when the application loads, I have this load data function here. And that load data function is going to go ahead and create a query with the out fields and the where is equal to 1 equals 1, which is how you can get all the features, which is basically what I want. But I really just want to return distinct values, and I don't want any geometry. That way it's just a really quick call to the service, right? And then I'm going to go and run that query. I get my features, and I'm going to pull out the value that gives me back for that field, the FIO1 field. That's going to have the biomass, coal, code generation, and all these different values you see on the left on the list on the right-hand side. And I filter them out because there are a couple null values. I think there is a null value in there somewhere for like other values that aren't in the list. So I just want to filter it out so I don't show that null value in my list here. And I'm going to sort it just so everything comes back nice and clean. And I return back a little object types with the values array on it. I probably don't need to do that. I just, I like to do it, so it's no big deal. Then what I do is before I get to the routes, I get to the config here, right? So I made a service, and I'm going to go and add that service into my application config. So that state service that I have is going to hold a little bit of state for me, and just dump it right into this application config as a provider. So at this point here, this is my app component TS file. One thing you want to do, and this is why we don't have an Angular wrapper anymore, is you want to bring in this custom element schema and add it to the schemas of your component down here, right? And when you do that, you can start working with web components, custom elements in your Angular application. If you don't, you're going to get these weird errors of like, oh, no, I can't find this component that you're trying to use. It thinks you're trying to make an Angular component, but it's not there. So yeah, there's all kinds of weird things that pop up if you don't do this. Then what I do is I got my router in here. I am doing routing, and I'll show you that route in a little bit. And here's where I go to get my service. I'm going to go ahead and inject the service into the constructor of my application root, the app component itself. And I've got this little subscription. So I'm going to subscribe to any changes to the filter on my state service. So whenever I click on one of these on the home page at gas, it's going to update the filter to gas. I'm going to catch that update in this little observation I'm doing here, the subscription. When I do that, I update my current selected item, which I don't think I really need to here, but I want to have it. And then I'm going to go and route to the map route. And I'm going to pass some query parameters here. I'm going to pass a filter query parameter with that current selected item. And that's all I'm doing in the app component. If we look at the app component, it's pretty simple. I have an app layout, I have a router layout. And let me show you the app layout real quick. This is kind of how you can do layouts inside of Angular. So basically the whole thing is inside a calcite shell. I've got a calcite navigation set up in here with the heading for the power plants. And then I've got this little check here. So if am I in the home directory? If it's not the home page, I want to go and display a little calcite menu item to go back home, right? So it's a home icon, which I showed you earlier. And I'll show it again in a minute. And then this home icon, let me go over here. So what I can do now, I have this router link, and this is Angular router. And when I click it, it's going to go back to the home page, right? And when it's on the home page, because I'm on home, I won't display this button here. So you can see over here, there is no home button over here, but as soon as I click on, let's say Hydro, I've got a home button here, right? Which is really cool. I like that. And then you have NG content here, right? Everything's all NG with Angular, which, that's cool. I don't mind. And it's basically like a slot inside of Angular, where it's going to be your default slot where all the content goes, just like the name says. And this will be all the different routes and stuff that I may want to place in here. If I come back over here to the app component, I have my layout, and then there's the router outlet. So anything that I route to is going to be shown inside that layout. Okay, cool. So let's look at the actual components themselves. Let's look at the home component here. So the home component is going to be a deferred component, right? Deferred view, which is kind of neat. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and defer loading the power plants here. And I have a little timer so I can show the little calcite loader, right? And I have a placeholder in here for the calcite loader, basically meaning that until this is ready, then we're going to show this. But once this is ready, we're going to go and show this up here, right? So this is kind of how you can defer loading certain things in your application. And then what I'm going to do is that for item of items, right? I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to pull this item property out of my array. And this is basically going to be the different lists I get, right? It's just a string, an array of strings in here. And I'll show you where that's coming from in a second here. But basically from there, I go pull out the string for the label and the string for the value. And then over here, I have a click handler that's going to call this update selected item. And I'm going to pass the item I click here to that update selected item. So we're going to look at what that is right now. So in the home component here, one thing you might want to notice too is that I'm actually importing all different pieces I want from calcite. I'm not using the defined custom elements or anything like that. and I have my set asset path here. Now, at the time of building this app, the current version of Calcite 3 is not on the ArcGIS.com CDN yet. So I use JS Deliver to get the very latest. It will be, probably by the time this video comes out, it will be on the ArcGIS.com CDN. All right. So I come down here, I have this items array, and that's where that items array I saw in the HTML is coming from. And the currently selected item in here, which again, I don't think I need in here. This was based off some stuff I was doing before, but you know what? I don't want to clean it up right now. Hopefully before Dev Summit, I will. Cross my fingers. And again, I'm going to inject my state service in here. And here's that updated selected item function. That's going to be the click handler used for my component, right? And this is going to go and call that set filter method on the service to update the item. And now the page before that we saw that listens for this to get updated is going to do what it needs to do to reroute to the map page and put this item as the filter in the query parameters, right? Remember, we saw that before. And then when this home page loads, we're actually going to go ahead and call load data on the service to pull this list down, and then update the array of items with types property off that load data. And that's basically just going to go ahead and be array of strings. Again, nothing too complicated, nothing too special. I don't need to keep track of anything else other than those string values. And then ng on init is a method you can call basically when the component loads. So that's when I'm going to call this load data method. So let's go and look at the map now. So the map is pretty basic, right? I have an ArcGIS map, I have an ID, my map, and I use this inside the TypeScript for this component. I'll show you that in a second. And again, it's deferred as well so that it will show up when it's ready. And on the ArcGIS View Ready change event, I call a handler for ArcGIS View Ready change, and I pass an event. And I've got my little expand in here and the legend. And again, I've got the calcite loader in case, the map takes a while to load or something like that, to navigate to the route. It'll just kind of defer that loading. It doesn't really happen though. It doesn't need it. So if we look at the code here, again, I'm importing the different components and stuff. And I've got my activated route from the router. And the activated route is the current route that I am on, right? And it's going to end up being a read-only prop on my component, right? So I'm going to inject that. That way, my route service is going to go inject that current route into my component every time it loads, so I know where I'm at. Then this is going to be the input is going to be the filter, right? That's going to be coming from the query parameter. I'll update that. And I have this ArcGIS View Ready change function here. I should probably give this a different name, to be honest with you. It's a little confusing because that's the same name as the event, so I may not want that. But basically, I'm going to go ahead and get the target from the element. I'm going to get the target from the event. Sorry, my dog is barking like crazy out there. Someone's going by. I'm going to create my new layer. That's the portal item. And I give it a definition expression using the current filter. And that's coming from the query parameters in the URL. And then we'll go ahead and add that layer to the map, right? So I just directly using add layer. Really, I should do this. So I'm gonna access the map, get the layers. I'm gonna add the layer directly there. And then when that layer is done loading, I want to update the extent of my map to be the full extent of the layer. And I come over here and I'm going to go ahead and when this map component loads, I'm going to go ahead and listen for on the route, the current route to get the query parameters, pull the query parameters info out of the URL and update my current filter. And again, I click on solar and it goes ahead, updates my route, updates my map, and these are all the solar power plants. So yeah, there is some old code in here. I need to clean this up before the DevTech Summit. Let me just show you one more thing on the routing, which the routing is pretty cool. There's actually a couple of cool things you can do. So it's just a simple JSON object that you pass to the route. So you're going to export that out, right? And for my home route, which is going to just be an empty string as a path, I pass my home component, right? I basically just want the full path match in here, right? And this is going to explain what the path match is. Keep having to look at this thing all the time because I was never really sure what that meant a couple times I was doing it. But yeah, that's pretty helpful for me to look at the TypeScript typings for that. And then what's really cool is that I wanted this on the map page part, right? Is that I don't want this code to load until I need it. So I'm going to go and dynamically make sure that component is loaded when the page loads. And, it's not going to try and load any other extra code I may not want to load, right? Which is really useful. I think so. Is really kind of nice to play with this. As I've seen other frameworks and stuff and tooling have something very similar to this, but it's just nice that it's just very clear what I'm trying to do here, right? I'm trying to load a component. I use a regular dynamic import. I don't need a lazy thing or anything like that. Just import it and return it. That's all I need to do, which is very refreshing for me. I gotta say, I am liking Angular quite a bit for someone that hasn't really used it too much. But I'm a fan. People, I gotta tell you, I am a fan. All right, and that was pretty much it for the whole component. I mean, to show you the routes, configs, all the different components and everything like that. Everything works really nice. Yeah, got my home button. Yeah, it's great. It was all fun. All right. So, like I said, I'm still learning Angular, but I'm much more comfortable with it than I was, say, a couple weeks ago. Right. And it didn't take me very long to get up to speed on all this. I read a bunch of doc. I didn't have to watch a bunch of videos or anything like that. The doc is really good at some stuff. I did have to kind of Google around for a couple little pieces here and there. But you got to be careful with Google because there are some uh, new things in Angular 19 that you can do that are not in some like Angular 18 and stuff. And when you find answers for some things like Stack Overflow, whatever, they're really referring to what you can do in Angular 18 and below. So you want to make sure that you're up to date with what's the latest for like Angular 19 and going forward, right? And some of that would be some of the ternary statements you could do in set components, the way that's kind of structured and stuff. Make sure you're doing it correctly. But they've really simplified some of that, so you don't have to bring in a lot of those little pieces and everything now. It's really just you write your code a little bit cleaner, I think. So I'm liking it quite a bit. And again, Angular is a framework, like a real framework, right? You don't have to bring in any third party tooling to manage state or anything like that if you don't want to. I'm sure there might be some other stuff you can bring in Angular to manage state, but it's a complete toolbox, right? Everything you need should be available pretty much with Angular to do some pretty cool stuff, which I like. I think that's pretty, and I can see why teams pick it to build some of their larger projects, right? So I'll definitely be giving this more of a go in the future. I enjoyed it. So yeah, I guess I'm an Angular head now. All right, cool guys. So I'll be seeing everybody later on. If you're going to DevTech Summit, please feel free to hit me up. Right, I'll be around all week long. Thanks, folks. Take care.